Hello, I'm Peter Towers, Managing Director of ESS Small Business and ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to this overview story on early stage innovation company. Will your company have an ESIC story? Where could your ESIC story begin? Perhaps you're a researcher and you've developed a product and you had a discussion with your accountant or your business advisor. You indicated that you were going to have to undertake a significant amount of research and development, and your accountant suggested that you form a company. A year later, you would have come back to your accountant and be discussing the lodgement of your company's tax return. And your accounts indicated that you have spent $90,000 on research and development eligible expenditure, and your accountant indicates that you're entitled to a cash rebate of 43.5% because your turnover is under $20 million. This means that the Australian Taxation Office will pay you $39,150 within 30 days of the company lodging its income tax return. An important requirement of this legislation is that by the 30th of April in the financial year following the year that you're claiming the research and development deduction for, so if that was the 30th of June 2017, by the 30th of April 2018, or the date of lodgement of the company's income tax return, you have to register your R&D project with Oz Industry. So your accountants indicated you're going to get $39,150. And whilst you're happy about that, you then tell your accountant or your advisor about your overall R&D project. And you indicate that you believe that this project's going to be very successful. And that your patent attorney also thinks the invention could be a winner. And that you are going to apply for a provisional patent. But it's going to cost a lot of money to commercialize. In fact, the estimate is over $2.5 million. And you're not sure how you're going to move forward because you haven't got $2.5 million. So your accountant has indicated to you that the government has launched a new type of company called an early stage innovation company. Your accountants indicated that you could complete a ESIC indicator. And in fact, he has one because he's a subscriber to ESS BIZTOOLS. So this is the ESS ESIC indicator, which has been designed to enable accountants and others to insert details of the client company, and so that the computer system is able to carry out the checks. Now, we're going to talk about these in this webinar. I'm just showing you this form now so you understand that it's there. So the first section is the test time determination, which is different as to whether the company is under 3 years old or under 6 years old, or whether it was a shelf company that's only just applied for an Australian business number. And then we're going to move into the gateway test. And then we're going to move into the principles-based test. So we'll move on and we'll talk about these items as we go through. So the test process is your company needs to be able to pass 2 out of 3 tests. And this is a due diligence process because you've got to be able to satisfy investors that you're going to obtain the ASIC accreditation, and also the Australian Taxation Office that you're going to be an ESIC. Your accountant can help you in this process by utilising the ESIC calculator that I just showed you before, compiling all of the supporting forms, putting it into an appropriate document of evidence files, because investors will want to check this And so ultimately will the Australian Taxation Office and Oz Industry, because it's the Australian Taxation Office that's the final adjudicator as to whether your company is an early stage innovation company. So the first test is the test time determination. We looked at that a moment ago on the calculator. In most cases, the company will need to be under 3 years old, but it could be up to 6 years old in some circumstances. The expenditure needs to be under $1 million in the previous financial year, and the income needs to be under $200,000 in the previous financial year. But the income does not include any grant monies that were received under an accelerating commercialisation grant that the company may have been involved in. And the company cannot be listed on a stock exchange anywhere in the world. They're the test time determination tests. If you can't pass those, unfortunately, your company is not going to be an early stage innovation company. We then move into the gateway test. And the legislation requires a company that is going to qualify under the gateway test to earn at least 100 points from 7 items. Now, you don't have to pass the gateway test, because if your company doesn't pass the gateway test, you then move into the next series of tests. But in the gateway test, points are going to be allocated for research and development activities, whether the company has been a participant in the accelerating commercialisation grant at any time in its history, that would mean up to 3 years, or if it's gaining access to ESIC as a 6-year-old company, up to 6 years. Whether it's been in an approved accelerator program, whether the company has already raised $50,000 or more from arm's length investors, whether the company has already registered a patent or a plant patent in the last 5 years anywhere in the world, whether the company has an innovation patent or a registered design in the last 5 years, and whether the company has entered into a commercialisation agreement with an organisation that is listed in the schedules to the Higher Education Funding Act or the Research and Development Act. The points that are available vary for each of those 7 tests, but if they aggregate to 100 points or more, your company has self-assessed under the gateway test. The documentation needs to be assembled, but basically your company is then qualified, because we've already been through the first range of tests. You need a detailed supporting documentation file, which your accountant or your advisor will be able to do. And we then need some statements signed by the directors, because all this information is going to have to be presented to investors for them to be satisfied that you are indeed an early stage innovation company. Now, if you earn less than 100 points, all is not lost, because you can then move to the principles-based test. The principles-based test is far more subjective. It asks 5 questions, and you have to supply a comment, more than a one-line comment, a mini-story about each of these items. Have you developed a new product, process, service, organisational or marketing methodology that has high growth potential, that you can scale the business so it can be seen to be able to grow? It's broader than the local market, so it's not just a product that's only suitable for the Sydney market. It has to be broader than that, and it has to have competitive advantages. If you can answer yes to each of those 5 questions and substantiate those answers, you then need, with the assistance of your accountant or your advisor, to create a detailed supporting documentation file that supports the self-assessment. And your accountant will then prepare a statement, re the self-assessment under the principles-based test that the directors can sign. All of this supporting information should be stored in the file so that it can be viewed by potential investors and ultimately submitted to the Australian Taxation Office and Oz Industry. A company that is self-assessing under the principles test, in most probability, would then lodge all of this information with the Australian Taxation Office and seek a ruling. So the Taxation Office have a section of employees who will then review the material that you have assembled that we've referred to already, and they will then issue in writing a Taxation Office ruling as to whether the company has correctly self-assessed under the principles test and that the company is a early stage innovation company. The Taxation Office has indicated that it is not necessary to get a Taxation Office ruling if you are self-assessing under the gateway test, because that is very clear-cut. You've either got the documentation to support that you have undertaken research and development, because that is able to be verified from your income tax return, or you have been in a programs for the Accelerating Commercialisation Grant, because that is all documented, and you will have documents to support the other matters. And the forms that we are suggesting that your accountant prepare for you will substantiate that documentation. Once you've completed this process and your company has self-assessed and you've then submitted the application to the Australian Taxation Office for a ruling, if it's under the principles test, you're in a position to start getting ready for the investment readiness phase. And when you receive that letter from the Australian Taxation Office, hopefully indicating that they agree that your company is an early stage innovation company, you will then be ready to move into the investment readiness phase. So what's the investment readiness phase? This is very important. You're going to need documentation now to convince investors. And whilst investors can receive some taxation benefits out of investing in a early stage innovation company, they also want to make sure that they're getting the best potential value from that investment. So they want to know that your company has undertaken some market research on whatever your product or service is, that there is a market for it, that people will pay for it, that you're able to enter those markets. They want to see a budget and a cash flow forecast probably for the next 3 years, and they want to see a business plan which incorporates the director's vision as to where this company is going to go. An information memorandum will need to be prepared because this is required under the Companies Act. And your CEO will probably have to make some investment presentations to business angel groups, to founders forum groups, and other potential investors. Your accountant or advisor can assist you by mentoring you in appropriate ways to make an investment pitch so that you can convince investors to back you. So what have you achieved from this process? You had an idea. Your accountant encouraged you to form a company because he or she knew that this was the best way for you to obtain some taxation benefits, and you obtained a benefit of $39,150 in this hypothetical exercise. You were encouraged to undertake the research and development program in a systematic manner so that you qualified for the research and development rebate. And then when you told your accountant that you needed to raise some capital, your accountant informed you about the Early Stage Innovation Company, which was legislation that the federal government introduced, primarily targeted at people like you who have developed innovative technology or systems or products or processes, and you need to raise capital to be able to commercialize that invention. Files have been created with all the supporting evidence to support your self-assessment that your company is an early stage innovation company. You've been able to prepare budgets and cash flow forecast, business plans, information memorandum, the sort of documents that the company is going to need to be able to convince investors to invest in your company. And you've then been able to present some investment pitches to potential investors. And hopefully you've now received commitments from those investors. And you've been able to raise capital. You've created your own ESIC story. Congratulations. I hope you write your own story so that it can be published, so that other people can understand that this process is not just a dream, but it can be achieved in Australia from now on by utilising the Early Stage Innovation Company legislation. If you would like to gain an indication of accountants or advisors who are committed to assisting business owners like yourself make this journey through ESIC, you can find their names by logging on to www.esssmallbusiness.com.au, then click on Find an Accountant Advisor. Then all you have to do is to insert your postcode, and the system will identify accountants or advisors in or near your postcode who are interested in assisting companies to become an early stage innovation company, because you will then be attractive to investors. Good luck with this project. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us, peter@essbiztools.com.au. Good luck with your ESIC journey and your business operations. Have a great day. Goodbye.